ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode, a special episode of Questlove Supreme. Ooh, we've been waiting for this. We've been waiting for this. We're here right now. You know what, Steve? I'm actually more excited for the 12-year-old version of you right now.
Yes, I am super excited to talk to this man and thank him for everybody who's ever had a bar mitzvah before. This is going to be amazing.
Yes, definitely.
Steve, I
That's
feel
right.
like this is my Christmas gift to you, man. This is my Shaka Khan gift to you. I got you the king of all bar mitzvahs.
Oh
Exactly.
wow, I never heard that title, but I'll accept that one. That's great. That's great.
We're going to talk about it. All right, I have to treat this like a movie.
Okay.
Even before I introduce what this show is, I just have to ask our guests who I've not introduced yet. Do you know the true story of how the song Celebration got written? Has Ronald Bell tell you the story of how it inspired him?
Not totally, but I have my own version of it when I'm through the experience.
Okay.
So
Well,
maybe I need to hear this.
I'm under the impression based on so I used to God. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Questlove and Questlove Supreme. Of course, I'm here with Suga Steve and our guest today. I don't even want to waste a long, arduous introduction because my introductions will be 19 minutes. I'm sitting here with the God, the king of all bar mitzvahs, the God, the most velvet, the velvet voice,
Yo,
supreme Jesus Christ, like my
the voice,
Nat King Cole,
the voice.
the voice of James JT Taylor, formerly of Kool The Gang.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you.
All right, so here's the deal, and I believe I might have told this on Robert's story as well, but I don't. At the time when I invited Ronald, brother Bayon, Khalees Bayon, to my back when I was teaching at NYU with Harry Wanger, we once had brother Ronald Bell, saxophonist, primary songwriter of Kool The Gang, and he told us the story of how he wrote Celebration. So riding riding high off the third wave of what the band is about to experience. Of course, if you're fans of the band, they came to it with a lot of jazz soul, more on jazz. A lot of Tribe Called Quest samples came from that wave. And then in 74, a joke sort of mocking Soul Makossa winds up being like one of the most pivotal funk songs of the 70s. So they had a 70s wave. And then the Dawn of Disco, of course, Open Sesame on the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack. That was kind of their third wave. And now they're about to start the hit making wave. And of course, fresh off the success of their Ladies Night single and the subsequent album of that same name, they're on tour and they happen to be in the Bay Area. And I believe that they arrived in town the day before on a Friday to do some local record stores and signings because now, the heat is back on. The heat's
It's
back on.
happening, yeah.
And Brother Ronald tells me that the promoter who's bringing you guys to the particular venue Playhouse in the Bay Area has another show happening that night. And would he like to attend? Would you guys like to attend? And that is when the Prince and Rick James show come to this venue. And what winds up happening is Prince goes on first. And at this moment, Prince has the number one song in the country on the soul charts with I Want to Be Your Lover.
Right.
And Ronald says that he really wasn't all that familiar with Prince. Like he heard about him, but he really didn't pay attention. And he definitely wasn't familiar with the song. However, he was highly impressed at how within 2 seconds everybody just screamed and lost their minds. It wasn't just like, oh, like everyone
That was
collectively.
the Circle Star, right?
It could have been. It could have
I
been
think of it
that.
the Circle Star. Yeah.
Okay, so he's more impressed with that. So that sort of brings out the antennas in his brain. It's like, yo, pay attention to the
He was good
song.
for that.
Right. So he's just pay attention to the song. And Prince finishes his set, and it's like a 20-minute changeover for Rick James. And Ronald asked the promoter, yo, run me backstage real quick to one of them dressing rooms that has a piano in it. And there was a spare room. And Ronald sits at the table and he starts notating what he thought he just heard Prince do, which is I want to be a lover. Dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
dun, 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 dun. And he writes those chords down. And he stares at this chorus, and as most songwriters do, another way to get to sort of squeeze juice from used fruit is you figure out different ways to flip a song,
Right.
and rewrite it again. People do it all the time. Like
all the time. Yep.
Fleetwood Mac famously on their reel, it still says Spinner's idea number 2. Their favorite song was I'll Be Around, and thus they made Dreams on Rumors about I'll Be Around. So anyway, he's looking at the notes, and suddenly he's like, yo, let me play this backwards. Now, dun, 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 dun. Backwards is dun, 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 dun. So he notates the music, and he's like, all right, I got the idea. I'm gonna go watch Rick James. I believe when you guys got finished the tour, it was like 3 weeks later, and he's going to either demo or submit the ideas to you guys. But he's like, wait, I got to make this a complete song. I only got a groove. I want to do a complete song and add a bridge to it. And he was running. He didn't have nothing was coming to mind. He looks on the table on top of the piano, and there is a Cashbox magazine. And he opens up the charts. He goes right to the pop charts and looks for the highest charting black song. So this particular issue, Rock With You by Michael Jackson, was number 5. So he knew Rock With You well. And when he wrote the bridge for it, it's time to come together.
Come together, yeah.
It's the same chords as Girl, Close Your Eyes. Let this rhythm get into you. Everyone around. Come on.
Come on, yeah.
That to me was one of the most genius stories I've ever heard of a song being constructed.
Well, he was always like that. He was I call him the fearless leader, because he would do things like that, and sometimes we would just hear it. We said, where did that come from? And we just, to ourselves. And sometimes he would, regurgitate why he did it or why it came. But to add to that, my understanding was that he, when it was there, because when people everybody would bring things in all the time, ideas, everything, little lyrics here, a guitar player, a guitar part here. And it was more of a celebration of the resurrection. Like Ladies Night came out, big record. And nobody knew it was Kool The Gang because they heard me, But we said, well, how are we going to follow that up? So if you listen to Ladies Night, Come On, Let's All Celebrate, it was already preordained, that we were going to do Celebration. Now, I don't know if that influenced him, but I know when we knew it was going to be Celebration, I thought back, I said, that spiritual thing starts hitting you. Say, like, we were like foreseeing this.
Yeah.
So we said, come on, celebrate. So now let's all celebrate. So, and then with the group going through that down period from like 75, I think, to 78, 79. Something like that. Yes, 79. There was a drought. And they told me the story that, the record label was going to drop them and all that stuff. And I said, okay, well, what are we going to do? That came later. That question came later. But yeah, so there was like I said, a resurrection as well. And we had gotten over that first Ladies Night album, and that was big. And so how are we gonna do it again? And people were actually doubting us. You know, it was more like,
I,
well, I want the
I,
old Kool The Gang. Give me
yeah,
the
I
horns and
want to talk
stuff.
about it.
Yeah,
I want to talk about that. Wait,
yeah, it was the same.
I gotta start at the beginning. So I just wanted to ask if you knew about that story, but that was my cold open to
No,
this episode.
that was the first I've heard of it that in depth anyway. But I think again, it doesn't surprise me because he was like that, man. He was a special kind of guy
I
from
feel you.
many different angles. But a sweetheart, and but I would say he was more. He was eclectic. He was a jazz guy, but anything was possible. If it was there. And I think
Right.
when he heard me sing, he was just like,
There goes that celebration.
"We're back."
Okay. Wait, ladies and
All right, I
gentlemen,
see it.
we had a technical difficulty, and
We just rewind it.
Steve, yeah, but Steve had punchline of the century. He was like, "Well, there goes this
Oh,
celebration."
oh, we got to
It
write this
was
stuff down. This is new
Right?
songs.
No, man.
yeah.
No,
It was
okay. Well,
either
let me.
that or it was either that or ooh la la oh no or
No,
something
Oh
like
no,
that.
no.
all right. All right. So wait, let me ask you because we're going to get to all these things.
Okay.
But let me ask you, what was your very first musical memory?
My first musical memory was I had to be like 6 because I remember we had just gotten our first television. I was maybe 5 or 6, and I remember being in the kitchen and looking through to the living room, and my grandfather bought the television, and when they turned it on, there was a group there. I don't know who they were, but I just know that they were dressed like a 5-man group, and they were just looking beautiful. And I didn't even go to the television. I just stood back and watched them, and it just kind of mesmerized, like looking like the puppy, with the head. And my sister, I have 8 sisters, by the way. So
Oh
that's
no.
that's why I understand women. A house full of women. So I know how to move. But my sister, she entered into a contest on the Cousin Brucey show, and this is taking me back. And she actually won, and she won that big smiley face thing on Cousin Brucey, and she
Right.
sang this song by what was it, Linda Jones, but it was called "I Know." I know you don't love me no more, no more, something like that. And
Uh-huh.
there was a trumpet solo, and I would and it was this is all radio, it wasn't on television. And that radio was always on top of the refrigerator, and I would stand there and mimic the trumpet solo. That was like my part, and that was like the first, thing that drew me into music right there.
Wow. So
So
you said you're one of 9.
yeah, well, yes, 10 actually.
Where do you fall in line?
I always say that I was looked up to and looked down on, right in the middle. Because my sisters, they
Oh,
were, we had a lot of fun. It's a house full of women going on, and my brother, he was younger, and I had an older brother who was, my mother's child, but we were all one family, and when we got together, it was a party. So no real
so
problems.
were are any of your other siblings as gifted? Is it a musical family?
I would say, yeah, because everybody sang in the church choir. It was almost like mandatory. My mom could sing, and I remember when we moved, 'cause we were born in the rural South, South Carolina, and
What
so we
city?
in Lawrence, Laurens, and for my mother, I think she realized, I have to get my children out of here to get some type of opportunity going. And this is just my thoughts. We rarely talked about that, but when we came to Jersey, we actually went to Brooklyn first, And when we found our way over to into Hackensack, and at the church there, the New Hope Church, my sister, you know, we were all in the choir, as I said, but my sister Frida, she actually did a solo once, just her piano, and I remember that being such a had a great effect that someone could be standing there with just a piano singing, and she didn't dress in a robe. She actually had a red dress on with, you know, and with legs showing in the church, you know, but it was classy, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember sitting on the side just watching it and just saying, just letting it all come in, you know. And but everybody you know, it's pretty much as far as the professional side, they didn't go into that, but that church part was something that was a big influence on all of us.
What was your household's attitude to secular music at the time? Like, were you allowed to listen to Motown or like
Oh yeah,
music of the
yeah,
day?
oh yeah, absolutely. Listen, my father passed away when I was 9. Okay, he was like only in his 40s. Okay, so here's
Mm-hmm.
my mother with all these kids, you know, and her rules were law. You know, you came home from school, you did this, you did that, you got up in the morning, you did this, you did that. And her thing was to make sure that we were rounded up, that she knew where we were and what we were pretty much doing. So she had a transistor radio on the refrigerator again, which no one could touch. And usually it was either some gospel going on there, and sometimes she would flip to like some blues or something like that. But my uncle, who yeah, he used to come by and he would drop off jazz albums. He would bring jazz albums for me to listen to, and he would leave them there. And I mean, he went from, you know, Syl Austin, and then also sometimes in the mix he would have like a Mom's Mabley album. So as long as, you know, we were in the house doing our thing, she was pretty much happy. So, you know, it's like we're playing all the Motown. She's in the kitchen doing her thing, and we're in here partying, dancing. And back then it was the long RCA, you know, stereo that had the,
You put
the
this,
best sound in the world, right?
right? Okay.
You know, you putting the records on and then the quarter and all that stuff. But as long as we were like happy and we were around her, she knew we were having a good time, she let us stretch out, man. It was and that also helped speed up my my love for music and going into different genres as well.
Your former group's story's been getting out you know, in the first 3 years, and they kind of been taking advantage of social media to tell these like 2-minute Instagram animated vignettes of like what their life was like as teenagers before they formed a band, and
Mm-hmm.
the kind of war stories that Kool was talking about and George, you know, that were you growing up in that part of Jersey? Because like to hear Kool tell it, like I'm like, yo, I'm shocked you're still alive. Like the amount of
Still alive, yeah,
the gang stories he told me, and you know,
yeah,
every day fighting for like a quarter bread, like literally to
yeah,
get a quarter to get a loaf of bread to eat that day.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
was that like what was Jersey like? What were your memories of Jersey?
My memories are fond. I had fond memories because we didn't have that vibe. You know, we had our boys with, you know, park scraps, everybody, you know, fighting and stuff like that. But it was more like um very sparse. You know, in our area, everybody knew everybody. We didn't we didn't have a real racial problem, you know, with the white students that went to school with us. And when we played, it was within like about a 2 to 4 block area. So you knew everybody. And when it was some fight, we never had like gangs fighting to get territory or somebody stealing your money. If somebody stole your money, you know, there was a fight going on. But it didn't
Right.
happen too often because we had this place called Second Street Park, and it was like our babysitter, our parents' babysitter. You know, they knew where you were, and we weren't allowed to like just wander off downtown or go to this place. You know, you had to ask, and you had to go home to ask to be somewhere. So again, we didn't have that type of friction. No, not nothing close
Got
to
it.
Jersey City.
Okay. What was your do you remember the first time that you saw a concert or a performance? Like who were your North Stars as far as like wow, that's what I want to do. Because the thing is that I believe like you're a rare breed of a singer that came out during the time you came out. Because
Hmm.
you were kind of like, even to me, you were like an older brother figure. You weren't like you weren't my pops, like that Teddy Pendergrass, turn him off.
Yeah.
Like that to me sounded like my pops and my uncles. Whereas like you were kind of like my cooler older brother, like too old for us to like live in a bunk bed, you know, but like varsity
I like
jacket,
that. Right.
varsity jacket level. And so the thing is that I know, by the time the Jackson 5 come out, you're like 18. So
Hmm.
I don't know if it's hitting you the same way that it's hitting like my 7-year-old sister, like where the Jackson 5 was everyone's North Star. So for you,
Oh
like
yeah.
who who were you more because you have a Johnny Mathis voice, I've asked like, were you more akin to like the styles of Frankie Lyman and the
Frame
teenagers?
like,
Like,
yeah, that's good that you brought that up. Well, the thing is, I remember, like I said, singing in the church choir and everything, but I always had a band also, and I would like wherever there was music happening in town, I found myself there, whether it was older guys or guys my age. And when I had my first group of three, we were like, we'd call the Electro Five, like the Jackson Five,
okay.
before when they were really like young, So we tried to mimic that, and we had the big Applejack hats and the nice shiny suits and everything, and we would call it Electro Five, you know. And so that sped everything up. But when I there was a band in town called the Filet of Soul, and like the best of soul. And I know it sounds a little fishy, but but
He
but
got you, Steve.
I got to Steve. I had to get back at Steve. At least throw one at him.
Mm-hmm.
But these guys were so good, Quest. I'm telling you, they played Sly as closest things to Sly as Sly himself. And we
Okay.
used to actually follow them around. And the thing that was odd was that the Catholic churches, the diocese would allow us to have parties, and they would have this like little drop offs. So they would go to Lodi, to Hackensack, over to this town, and they had a following. And I used to follow them. And years later, I end up being the lead singer of that same group. So Sly became the one that I love the most. And not just because it was him, but it's the eclectic part of their band, having clarinets, trumpets, women, a drummer, and all these different parts, and a B3 organ. So that was everything I pretty much grew up with. And he was like, and still is to this day, like my guy.
Wow. Okay. That's
Yeah.
what's up. What was the first album you ever purchased?
I knew you're gonna dig with that one. Phew. See, the albums were in the house, but I never bought because we didn't have money. So it was things usually
Okay.
like a Shirley Caesar album or something like that. But I never bought gospel albums. My mother, that was
Okay.
like kind of her role. But if I think back to it, it had to be something with Motown or James Brown. Probably a James Brown record.
Got it. Okay. Wait, Steve, you're asking something. Just put your hand up because I didn't know.
No, I wasn't. I'm enjoying the background
Oh, okay.
story here.
That's what's up.
And
So
where are you living now? Just out of curiosity, for
I'm
context.
in North Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Still home.
Were there any other functions that you were singing at high schools or
I would sing anywhere, any
okay.
style in the park, at it for nothing. You wasn't getting paid. Um, but I never. I don't. Let me see. I didn't say to myself, "This is what I want to do." I was in the midst of it from the moment I heard music. If you understand what I mean. It's like I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have a time when, okay, this is what I'm going to do for life. It was just a part of me, and it's like a lot of things are like that for me. I don't have to really put on airs to be something or to accept someone doing something like their greatness. Like when I see you and your band, it's like that's supposed to happen. And whatever you're doing, I'm just gonna immerse myself in it and not be so judgmental. Even if I don't, particularly like everything. It's just I think that the life of music is like my lifeblood. And that's why I don't want to have a specific moment. But when you say a Jesus moment, it's like I remember like my mother used to when we got too old to get that whipping,
Mm-hmm.
um, she would like make us sit on the steps or something like that. And one day, I don't know what I did, but she sat me on the back steps on our back porch, and I was just sitting there, and I was always like a very like outside the Bible thing, like things didn't make sense to me. It was like, why is this happening? I'm like, you
I,
know,
but I
go
meant
ahead.
that metaphorically. I didn't mean that
Yeah, yeah,
literally.
I know what you meant, but
Okay.
I'm trying to get to something. So
Okay.
one day I'm sitting there, and I actually felt like I saw the tree growing. I mean, this is when I was very, very young. So I've always had that feeling. So there wasn't a moment of that Jesus moment of music. I'm going to do this in my life. It was just
Mm-hmm.
a part of the maturation was all of it. So when it did happen,
Got it.
I was already in the midst of it, and it never overwhelmed me at that time. If you understand what I
Okay.
mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
I got it. So, I'll ask you, what was your knowledge of the moment they became Kool and the Gang? I know there were various other groups, but I mean, what were your opinions? Were you aware of them from their first self-titled record?
Oh
Their
yeah.
first. So, what was your opinion of like? What did you think? Were they just like, oh, they from Jersey or da da
No,
da?
no,
Let's
I
make lunch money. Like,
no, I thought they were awesome because we used to, carry the boom boxes then, and a friend of mine, Curtis, he would always have his boom box, and we would listen to Kool the Gang stuff walking to school. And sometime I go to his house, and I remember, I forget what album it was. I think it was the Ice Block, Kool the Gang. It was like a
oh, Kool
block
and the
of
Gang, the
ice.
message.
Yeah, the message. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I got into what they were talking about because remember, we were growing up in the civil rights. So those things they were talking about in a musical way, I said, well, that's pretty clever how they got the message across, you know, with not even as blatant as like a Gil Scott did, but it was something that I could relate to musically as well as instrumentally, and something you could dance to at the same time. And so that was always a magnet. And if you look at all the groups back then, from James Brown to I'm Black and I'm Proud, anything that anybody was doing, Marvin,
Mm-hmm.
it was the social consciousness while we were growing up that implemented music, that showed instrumentation, and all these great guys playing this stuff. And then, like I said, with my uncle dropping jazz music off, I realized that they were telling the same story growing up. So it was reaching and pulling me in all of these different directions. But I thought that Kool and them were great. And ironically, when I mentioned the Flay of Soul, we actually opened up for them once at Newark College. I think it's Kane College in Newark. And I tried to get backstage to meet them. This was years before I became a member, and some security guy wouldn't let me come back to meet them. But I wanted to talk to them about what they were doing because I liked it very much.
Oh,
Wow.
okay.
Yeah,
That's such a cool story.
yeah. It,
Boops.
it's all one,
Oh,
man. It's all related in some way.
Yeah,
that's
it
so
is.
cool. Yeah, that you got to, that's really interesting that you were a fan and tried to meet them, end up in the band.
Right.
Yeah, and
So
end up it. It's crazy.
how did you specifically uh get their attention? How what's the story process that leads to you
me
guys
coming a
meeting
member.
to audition for the band.
Yeah. Well, again, I did a part owner of House of Music and studios in West Orange, and I did a session with what's his name? I used to work with Bob Marley, Jeff Dixon. Name
Wait,
is
what?
Jeff Dixon. Yes.
Really?
And I went. I got a call that Stephen said, "Listen, man, this guy trying to put this group together, and his name is Jeff Dixon. He wants you to come down." I told him about you, and we the session, and I did there was a section of the song that I did, and when I finished my part, I went out, and when it was done, um, he said, "Come back in," and he said, "Listen to what happens to the song when you sing, when your part comes." And he played it through. And he said, "You hear that? That's it right there." He said, "I got to get you with somebody, And I was like, I was just doing what he instructed me to do. And
Mhm.
So when I got the call to come to audition, I don't know if it was Stefan, whether it was Jeff Dixon that told Coolum about me, but I know when I got there, Irene Conrad, I mentioned, he said, "Yeah, well, Coolum, they're down here." And I went in and I met Khalees. And the thing for me, I really wanted to meet DT and Spike for some reason. I don't know, because DT was always like the cooler dress guy, and
Mhm.
he played a great horn, and Spike played the trumpet, and I seemed like
Spike Mickens. Mhm.
yes, Spike Mickey. He had this just jazzy thing about him that was cool, and he had the Widow's Peak kind of cut, man.
Yeah.
He was just like a attractive kind of aura that they had.
So
And
you really knew these cats.
yeah, I knew him from just their music, and I
See,
appreciated. Yeah.
in my mind, I was like, especially now. I mean,
Hmm.
I'm Gen X,
Yeah.
and there's some Gen Zs and Gen Alphas after Z's Alphas
Right.
that this is pretty much like started with millennials, but also with Gen Z and with Gen Alpha, where it's just like a kind of blatant, sort of purposeful uh indifference, or just basically like I don't care. It's weird. Like I wouldn't think, just because how brash hip hoppers act now,
Hmm.
that I wouldn't think that, like, I thought, oh, he's probably a new guy in a group and don't even know who,
Uh,
like, like who Mickens is, or who,
right. Right.
like, oh, some old guys want me to sing in their group, and that.
No, I never thought that. And Quest, back then, like the albums, they had the liner notes. They told you who guys were. So you would sit
Yeah.
there. You didn't have a cell phone or anything. So you would go through the album and you're listening to it and you're finding out, oh, this guy played that. Oh, I didn't know. And I didn't even know DT played the flute.
Okay.
And then I found, oh, that was him playing that. Oh, okay. So when I met him, I
Right.
was like, yo, man, that part you played on this, stuff like that. So I was telling them little things that I appreciated, and Funky George, and listening to that foot, man. I said, wow, that's, you know. So I was like in heaven, kind of, so to speak.
So, you know, Callis, I mean, the way he describes you, all that I said about your velvet voice, and you being a modern Nat King Cole, that was,
Hmm.
I asked him in my class, like, what was that process like of finally striking gold? Because, he told a story about, the everybody's disco dancing album like flopped, and they were in a store and doing an autographs session, and nobody was there, and one girl was like, "Who they supposed to be? Oh, Kool the Gang, ew." Like, it was
Hmm.
like, ah, man, we got to get a singer. We got to get a singer. It was like desperation. But he says that he knew within the first 3 seconds you were the singer because you sounded like Nat King Cole. And I thought, like, that might have struck me odd, because I would almost think, like, okay, during that time period, 79, you got to
Hmm.
compete with all these gruff,
And
high
Lionel and
just,
all these
yeah,
high singers and the.
yeah, and everyone's like really I mean, either they're kind of over the top. Eh, I'm not saying primitive exotic, but it's definitely, unless you come super animated. Oh, or like
Right.
Sugarfoot is animated, Bootsy
Yeah.
and Parliament, they're animated, or you're coming like, I mean the Mandingo,
Earth, Wind, and Fire is somebody. Yeah.
yeah, like or spiritual. You came very classy, but you came classy in a way that wasn't like I don't think Johnny Mathis would, and I could be wrong, and I hope I am wrong. Like I don't know if Johnny Mathis would be like just walking down the hood, you know what I mean? But you had you almost had like you had some street confidence about you, but you also came off like you might have done 2 years in ROTC training or in college.
I actually did.
Yeah, yeah. Like
I actually did.
and I hate that I didn't think of it as much as I love the Jacksons and they were my heroes. I never looked at them once and thought like, you might be some college educated brothers.
Mm-hmm.
The Commodores talk all the time about going to Tuskegee
Tuskegee, yeah.
Institute, but
HBCUs, yeah.
but they
I was
still
at Thompson.
So for me, you were like the first look into like what we might perceive De La Soul to be, or like the root. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
so for you
That,
though, what was that? What was the audition process like?
but first, let me just say that I appreciate your insight and your wording on that because it's I've never heard it explained that way, but it's something how you do what you do and someone's looking like this and your interpretation of it is your interpretation, and you're spot on some things, but it also makes me appreciate the fact that I always carry myself as myself. And that's what you saw. You didn't, and you would have been able to tell if I was fake by just what you said. But going back to your question, I didn't go in there like super nervous. And I think again, as I said to you, the process was the whole thing included, meaning the music process from being young all the way through. So this feeling that I've had, the spiritual feeling I've had was like, okay, I'm here. So this is what we're going to do. And he said, let me hear you sing something. I said, well, what do you want me to sing? He said, anything, just make something up. And he started playing these changes. And I sang, in my baritone voice, And he said, can you sing high? And I said, yeah. And I did some falsetto stuff, And that's pretty much all I remember doing for him.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
I didn't sing.
did you know what you were walking into?
No.
So no one officially
Only,
said Kool
no,
The Gang's
the only,
looking for a lead singer. No one said
no,
that?
no. The only thing I knew was that they were looking for some background for me to sing background on a record.
Okay.
And again, that's what I do. So okay, where's the songs at? And my thing, I'm like that. What's the song? What are we gonna do? And I'm thinking it's gonna be more in the vein of what they did before, background, Hollywood, Jungle Boogie, all that stuff. And when I met with, I think it was Gabe Figueredo, Delight Records, he said, Jay, that era has passed. And when I met Diodato, I don't think I was in the meeting, but he asked Gabe, he said, well, who's gonna sing this? And he said, him, this JT. And he said, I want you to put the music around him, his voice. And I'm saying, okay.
So,
And so I'm green at this time. You got to understand, as far as studio work, I've never worked in the studio in any capacity, like what's going to come.
so was Diodato, excuse me, was Diodato part of your audition? Like, was he one of the people who was?
No, no, he wasn't in there at all. I
But
met
he
him a
was,
little later.
but he was
Yeah.
already involved with them at that point.
At that point, I was so everything was gray. You know, I was like, I knew I was Kool The Gang. I'm in the studio, a house of music. They like me. Um, and when we started working, we instantly I would say instantly, but we started working on music, and we would go to I think on 30th West 30th Street at Daily Planet, and just playing songs there, you know. And so when Diodato got involved, his whole thing was trying to mesh what they brought in, what everybody was writing. And at the time, I wasn't bringing anything in as far as like songwriting, anything like that. I was more like just feeding off of what's coming at me. Let me be here. Let me listen to this guy. Let me be over here. And it was all interesting. Nothing was boring. But the thing that was funny though was that they had three girls, three women, I would say, singing background, and a couple of other
Something sweet, right?
something sweet. And,
Okay.
there was a couple other guys in there, and I remember them looking at me sideways, you know. And I'm up here saying, okay, I might have to get my street vibe on, you know, because what's going on? Like, what are these people looking at me like this for? So I'm thinking, do I have to make a phone call, you know, get some of my guys to come, because this is all me thinking. This is not them. And
Right.
because I'm saying, why are these daggers being thrown at me when I'm here to help? You know, I didn't ask to be here. You know, I mean, I didn't, you know, to bring myself here. I was encouraged and asked, invited to be here. So, and I thought that they were good. And I said, well, why don't we just keep them to myself? This is all internal. You know, while music is going on, and people are walking around, and I don't know any of these people. I don't even know Kool in them really. So
Right.
I'm trying to vibe and make sure I'm safe at the same time. And, you know, I wasn't a person who hung out in the city. So that whole thing, you know, was new too. So, you know, there's a lot coming at me.
One, I wanted to know, what were you doing to survive before you joined the band, and how long was it until you felt secure enough that you were making your living as a member of Kool the Gang?
Well, when I went to HBCU as well, Norfolk State, Virginia, and
Okay.
I did 2 years there, and it just wasn't my time to be in college. You know, I was all about music, and I didn't study music there, and I just had a difficult time, so I dropped out, and because music was my passion, you know. But when I came home, you know, I was pretty much bumming around. I was playing a lot of different bands, and working odd jobs, and you know, got me an apartment and had a raggedy car, that type of thing. And you know, all of this happened, and then I get the phone call from Kool and them. But I think at 79, when we did the Ladies Night album, and we started going to uh, Paradise Garage and all these different places for promotions and clubs in
You
the
went
city.
inside Paradise Garage?
Yes, we did it.
What was that like?
I knew that was gonna raise your eyebrows. But we actually had the record company did a promotion there, because you know it was the greatest sound system in the city.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
with those
The speakers.
the speakers, right, cranked up. You wouldn't even be able to hear when you left there. But we did a thing when they dropped Ladies Night at Paradise Garage, you know, which was appropriate. And I remember we went up, and the DJ called and said, Kool the Gang's new record, you know. And he said, Kool is here, JT's here.
Oh,
And
Larry Levan.
yeah, you know that. Oh, yeah. And they
Oh,
dropped it.
dude, I
Eh,
aspire to be his level of DJing. Like,
Yeah,
he's a
he was
hero.
awesome, man. And he
Yeah.
dropped it. And they hit the floor, and everybody just looked at each other. It was just like, okay. And the record company, I think that they knew that they had it right there, because again, nobody expected it to sound like that. You know, they were looking for all these horns and everything, and they were like, well, who's the voice? Where'd that voice come from? And some people were like, nah, man, that can't be cool in them, and
Right.
sometimes I got a little flack back for that because, oh well, I want to hear the old stuff, the way it's style. And they were telling me, say, listen, man, we weren't eating on that stuff anymore. You
Right.
know? So it
Um,
was yeah, it was awesome.
okay, so I
But did I
all
answer the
right.
question? Yeah,
Yes.
because at that ladies' night out, that's when I realized I start making a living and buy some new
I, I
clothes.
I figured as much. I figured as
Yeah.
much. This is probably one of the rarest chances I get to ask this question. So I'm
Hmm.
gonna try to ask very carefully.
Okay.
What could a working class musician make in 1979? I mean, I'm basically asking what is a living in 79? And I'm only asking this because, okay, like hip hop has distorted the kind of expectations and view, like the expectations of what one should expect from this industry. Because,
Yeah.
such a hustler culture and you see everyone just like their money away.
Yeah.
Um, and the thing is that my manager, a gentleman named Richard Nichols, my manager kind of told us from the gate, look, I'm not doing this. You guys aren't going to ball out of control. Like, you're going to be able to slide your mom some very significant petty cash monthly. You'll be able to have a half decent crib, and
Hmm.
if I do my job right, you guys will at least be able to make at least what a surgeon would make. I'll say it this way: at the time, I did agree with that, and I subscribed to it. Now I'm in a mind state where I want to be a daredevil and dream my highest dream. Like,
Of
but
course. Of course.
back
Yeah.
then, I was really small minded with it. But that
Hmm.
said, I think that's what at least for the 20 years of doing the Roots, before the Tonight Show, that enabled me to not have distorted expectations and stay focused. Like a lot of
Hmm.
people after their third or fourth time, like it took us 4 albums to really get to a satisfactory place, but I think a lot of people would start to give up or start sabotaging their self or um and I'm asking this because there really wasn't the standard of hip hop baller lifestyles expected for
Not at all.
black singers. So, I mean, unless you
Yeah.
were hanging with now Teddy Pendergrass had a whole different story hanging with drug dealers back in the day. And
Yeah.
shout out to JBM, some of
Right.
Tariq's uncle, some of Tariq's uncles. But what could you expect to make a living on as a lead singer of an established band with albeit with a new lease on life that they didn't have before, like in
Hmm.
the 80s?
That's a well put, first of all. And our situation, we didn't have that type of manager that you had. Um,
Okay.
we were not given any direction as far as what you're going to make per se. Um, my expectations were simple math. Um, you know, how many records did we sell? Okay. We got six of us. Okay. Record label gets this. Okay. So where's that? What's left over? And
Right.
that wasn't happening. Now, I couldn't rock the boat at that point because I didn't really have the cachet, the input, the
Seniority.
seniority to do
Right.
that. So they
Okay.
were rationing out weekly
So,
income
so you were
to
getting paid
us
like a rookie.
like a rookie, right? But
All
enough
right.
to live better than I was living,
Got
just
it.
about a little bit more above that. So, um, and we were actually working so much that it should have been maybe 5 to 10 times more than that, because we
Got
were
it.
killing it. We were like working every day, like seemed like we never stopped. So the money really wasn't adding up to what we were being, what we were, how with the hits and how much we were touring.
Got it.
And
The breakdowns
my
and all that
family
stuff.
started asking that question, like, okay, well, you get your apartment, you got a decent car now, and I could, when I wanted to slide my mother that money you were talking about, I didn't
Hmm.
have as much as I thought to do that. Because at the time, you don't really need a whole lot. You just kind of still in the midst of the musical part, you know,
Right.
and and you just expect the money to be there. You got around people around you. I'm with Kool and them. They've been around here since the '60s. All this is going to come around, and it was fine. When I started asking questions, that's when I started finding out, all of the side deals, all the things that were not there, and
Got it.
you just kind of find your way through, speak when you can speak. And some of the people that we were working with, I was told, well, you can't talk to these people like that. I said, well, if I'm being a man, no one's going to stop me from talking and speaking up for myself.
Hmm.
I'm not trying to be a bad guy, a street guy, nothing. I'm just going to say that this shit ain't right, and this should be a little bit more balanced right here, So that was always my position.
So were the people that were running Delight Records the same people by the time you got in your tenure in 1979?
Yeah,
Because Ronald told me that I mean, he was very careful with his words, but he
sure.
was basically insinuating to me that the whole Jungle Boogie story uh was kind of at the insistence of some
Yeah,
friends of ours.
I would say that. Yes, I heard that story.
Ah, that kind of hitman level. Okay.
So same people.
Wow. I see. I see. So
You
so
know, and, and like,
I
and you understand what I'm saying?
I totally understand what you're saying.
I'm so glad for once it's not my people who are screwing up.
Hey
It
man,
was
have
you.
you
It
read
was
the
you.
have you met the have you read Morris Levy's Hitman?
No, not yet. No, no, I haven't.
No, that's the book that exposes that's what
The
built
whole the
Jersey.
whole game. Yeah,
Jersey, Sylvia Robinson, all them people.
So what?
yeah,
Um,
I'm sorry. Let
yeah.
me interject here. So what about the
Sure.
publishing side of things, though? Was that also sort of shady because you were writing
Yeah,
some of these big hits,
yeah. Because
co-writing?
when I came into the group, and when I started peeping some of this stuff, it was more like uh, they had told me they had a deal that was already set when I came in. So I kind of had to buy into what was already established.
right.
I wasn't a separate entity. I was now a part of the entity, and with that, that means that I had to adopt some of the things that they had already had in order, and there really wasn't anything I could do about it.
The repertoire when
Mhm.
you first get in the group. As I said at the top of the show, there's like almost 5 to 6 levels of the band's history that one could gravitate towards. If you're into a lot of early rap samples, then the first 3 years are your bag. For kind of like the first real true steps into funk territory, not soul, but funk.
Sure.
There's an era of like 74 to 79, and then there's the disco period, 77 to whatever, and then here comes the hits, 79 and so on. Um, when you guys are putting your shows together, is there any attention being paid to uh for the kind of pre-Wild and Peaceful catalog songs or songs like NT or Raw Hamburger
Yeah.
or like a lot of these, or
Great
Kool is
stuff.
back.
Yeah.
Are they still a part of the show, like the instrumental part of the group?
Not really. That was
Or
one
once
thing
you came in, then it was just
yeah,
singer focused.
not totally, but you know, around everybody was like, listen, man, they want to hear the new songs. And I said, yeah, but we have the best of both worlds here, guys. And I used to preach. I said, man, we have to play Open Sesame tonight, and it depends on where we were
Oh,
playing.
wait a minute, they wouldn't do that.
No, we did it
Well, I consider that a hit.
yeah, once in a while, and I said that we would because you know we always had great segues into songs. You know, I picked up a lot of that from working with Khalees, and I said we could just sneak that in right here. We could sneak NT right here, or what was this? What was this crazy song that it was called? Buku Boxer, something like that.
Okay.
Anyway,
Boxcar Bertha. No, I don't.
nasty little funky track, man. And
Uh-huh.
then Summer
Right.
Madness, they didn't have a problem with that. And Hollywood
Okay.
Swinging, we would play that. But as far as involving all that other stuff that I grew up on, walking to school with, it just, over time, it just was moved out. And each album that we did, because we had like almost a decade run of just top 10 or top
Right.
5 hits those are the songs that they said people wanted to play. And the audience became more global. And the global audience didn't know all of those songs that you and I like, the NTs and all that. They
Right.
knew Celebration and all this. And I remember when we did Joanna, this is one of my most I was one of the most hurtful things that ever happened to me. And
Soul
this
Train.
business. No. We
Oh, okay.
did. No, it wasn't Soul Train, but
I was
that's
going to
another
ask
one.
Don with the way
Yeah.
that Don. Okay, go.
Yeah. And we were doing Joanna, and we had this black station, and we were rolling and everything, and the A&R guy was trying to get the record played. I don't think it was down with Butter and them down there in Philly,
In
but
Philly, okay.
yeah, but it was something like a big station like that. But anyway, they said it wasn't black enough. And I remember, Quest, I'm telling you, I remember going back to my room and walking, just pacing in my room back and forth. I don't know how long I did it. And almost like water coming out of my eyes, right? And I'm thinking about Frankie Lyman and all these guys that paved the way to do all these things from jazz to Leontine Price and all these different rock and it just full genres across the board, right? I'm thinking about all of them that were couldn't even dress in the dressing room, had to come in the back door. All of this is in my head. We were going through civil rights, and we're trying to find our way through. And I'm doing this melodic song that is a part of me. And if it's part of me and me in the group, then it's a part of Black America, So how could somebody black tell me that it's not black enough?
Black
So I said,
right.
What does black enough mean? So that was the first time I was hit with that. And I remember calling my mother, and I said, Mom, I said, they said I wasn't, my singing ain't black enough, And she said something. She told me, she eased my mind. She said, that's a good thing. That means that you're different. They try to tell you that you're supposed to sound like something they want you to sound like, but you don't sound like that. So that makes you unique. How you feeling? And it sobered me up because it reminded me that you've grown into this rainbow of styles from the little transistor radio to the band, the Filet of Soul, and then hearing all my heroes like the Motown and then the Philly International sounds and all this and Stax Records and all these different great people. And you're amongst those people now. And so you don't have to try to be anybody but who you are. And that is a black man who can do rock, funk, jazz, love the classics, Leontine Price, love Stravinsky, You know what I mean?
Hmm.
You can, it doesn't matter. Black, it's not a color thing with music. So she cooled my little ass down real quick and said, know who you are. You're Taylor. And people have already given you, the christen you, that they accept what you are. So don't you start thinking that you have to be somebody else just because a radio station said this song ain't black enough. Maybe not for what they want to play, but
I
globally,
mean,
the world has already said we love this.
you also got the last laugh, bro. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. It was,
the
but it was
song's
a
immortal
traumatic
still to
time,
this day.
bro. You know what I mean?
It's still wait. This is the dumbest question I'm ever going to ask in my professional career, but
Okay.
this is the only chance I get to ask it. When you shot that Schlitz malt liquor bull commercial,
Go ahead. Come on. Come on.
there was never a real bull on the premises, right?
Oh, hell no.
Okay,
I would have been gone before he broke through that.
yeah,
That was some pretty good pre editing, right? I would say pre AI.
man, nothing would scare me more than to this day when I go down a rabbit hole on YouTube. I will
Yeah.
literally watch all 45 minutes of every Schlitz malt liquor bull commercial of
Right,
every
right,
soul
right.
great running, and I always wanted to know, like, I didn't know. All right, yes, I was dumb
They
enough to
used to edit.
actually.
They used to edit it. And I hope I didn't ruin it for everybody. But
When I first got my record deal, or just for me, uh, like I would say that my first splurge, like, okay, I made it. It's not much. It was too much of a buildup, but for me, sneakers and my record collection,
that was it.
yeah, was all I wanted to do in life.
I get you.
For you, like, what was your first like extravagant? I want cheese on my Whopper. Like,
That type of thing. Let me see. I think I got my first Mercedes
okay,
because before, as I said, I had my own apartment. Barely paying the bill. And a
right.
raggedy car. So the beach showed a little prestige, man. Let me get a decent car because the car that I had, I'm gonna tell you this story. The car that I had, it had been hit from the side
Oh,
and on the passenger side, right? So whenever I went to pick somebody up, I would drive and park on the driver's side
make
to let
sure
them
that
get in.
we had a group purchase. We got a Land Cruiser that we all shared. Whoever needed a Land Cruiser, I wasn't driving then, but Tariq would often dent that Land Cruiser, and it
Oh,
get to the point where he would pick, his lady friends up
right.
only on the right side of the street so that she could never see
Right, exactly. That was
the
me. You got to
scratch
tell
that
them
he
the
put.
story. That's exactly what I did.
I see,
Yeah,
I
that's
see.
funny.
Wait, question. When you guys are on tour, do you have to do Don Boyce's ad libs on Jungle Boogie?
I did, yeah. I tried
What was your first show like?
doing with the group.
Your very
Um,
first Kool the Gang show.
you wouldn't believe this. I didn't even know. In fact, there wasn't any. This is I think this was before we actually started working on Ladies Night. I did a show with them,
Oh, you were
and
singing with them even before.
yeah, right before we started. Yeah, we did, I only did one show,
Okay.
and right after my audition, and I think I did an Earth, Wind, and Fire song on their show. I sang a ballad. I'm trying to remember which one it was.
Be Ever Wonderful, a song for you.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe from the Head to the Sky album or something.
Oh, you went deep. Okay.
Yeah, something like that. Because he asked me because he just wanted to show the people. that, just see how I,
Respond to the
perform
crowd.
live or something. Yeah, and it was very smart, but yeah.
So, but how do you know? I mean, you're the lead singer. How do you know things like eye contact and communicating with the audience and, make the whole room feel like, the things that you would probably have to lodge 100 shows under your belt to truly know, like the
Yeah,
back of your hand. Like,
yeah,
are you just being thrown in the river like sink or swim? See what's up.
yeah.
Like,
But see, again, as I said, I wasn't threatened by that. Not about being on front of the stage, because I was always that guy. Like if I had a band and the band was called, Street Dancer or Play a Soul, I was always JT. And
got it.
we were I
So
was
that wasn't
13
your
years
first
old.
show ever. Like you
No, no. Like
obviously
when I was
done.
13, we did the Apollo,
What
and
was that like?
let me tell you, that was scary because I think we were like 13, and we were trying to, make this something we were going to do. It was like our little band, and in fact, we did the Intruders, Cowboys the Girls,
Yeah.
and um, we did the rehearsal, and I never forget at the Apollo. I didn't think it was going to be this raggedy downstairs, right, where all the guests were, and there was
It
these
is.
stairs that led us, to go up to the stage, and there was this huge rat trap under the staircase, and I'm saying, what the hell? And we're all sitting there, and I'm saying, okay, so you just blank it out of your mind. So that night, our biggest thing was to make sure that Sandman didn't hook us off stage. That was our goal. If we could do that, we got it. And we actually came in third place. And this guy, this older guy that sang Nat King Cole, by the way, on the piano, he won that night. But we didn't get pulled off. We were in the line, Well, first,
Right.
how you thinking? Hand claps, Third, He said, "Okay, you guys come off," and then he won. So we were just relieved that we didn't get pulled off by Sandman.
Which which member of Kool and the Gang was the most diplomatic in welcoming you into the fold? Because you're also a rookie, kind of coming to an established house where,
Yeah.
like even there was a point where Allen Iverson had to carry the bags of Sixers that he was better than.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
I didn't do any of that,
which member
but
was the most diplomatic in welcoming you into the fold?
I would say it was Khalees and Kool, because Kool at the time, he in fact, when we first started going to the House of Music, he actually came up from Jersey City and picked me up from my home, and he drove me down and back home. So Kool
Okay.
was more like that guy, and we started hanging out as well. But he and I would
Okay.
say Khalees, I went like to meet his mom, like Khalees's mom and stuff like that, And I just think they realized I was like, I was a down guy, like like you could, I wasn't like a rough rider, but I wasn't no punk either, I was just like, and musically, I could talk to them, and I actually learned so much from just sitting around listening. Because my mother said, just keep your ears open. You don't have to talk all the time.
Are you significantly younger than them, or?
No, just a few years, like three. I think George was 3 years.
Okay.
Khalees was two. I think Kool was three. So it wasn't too far. But a lot of people thought I was a lot younger than them
I
because that's
thought
just
you were
how
the
I
baby
look.
brother.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Uh, which member would you have the most conflicts with?
Well, in the beginning, none. I was
Oh,
I was
okay.
hanging out with everybody, but I don't even know where it turned. But for some reason, um, DT started. We started rubbing a little bit, and I didn't understand what happened because I remember him and Penoir bringing their daughter Michelle to my room to meet me
Actress
when Boss
Michelle
actors, yeah,
Thomas, right?
the late, yeah,
Yeah,
and
from
and
Family Matters.
the Urkel, Your Family Matters,
Yeah.
And so it was all good, man. We hanging out, partying together, and somewhere along the line, we just started friction, and I just didn't understand it because we were constantly, banging out songs. We
Hmm.
were in the studio all the time, and if we weren't in the studio, we were on the road. And most of those albums, we were actually touring and would come home off the road and go right to the studio. And I think for almost a decade, we never had a vacation. So I didn't understand with the success what happened. But I tend to believe that more the focus became on me than the group. And I used to tell them, I said, listen, man, who's in the studio with you? Who's on the stage with you? These people are going to say whatever they want. And in any band, they usually gravitate to the lead singer. No matter,
Hmm.
if you had the Stones, people know Mick Jagger, or Genesis, they know, Phil,
Hmm.
so it's not to put you down or anything like that. It's just the way things are. And because I was never into that mindset. Oh, it's JT. I said, man, listen, if it wasn't for this guy being in the room, this wouldn't have happened. And I never forget that.
Were you singing lead vocals on every song on every album as soon as you started uh, on Ladies Night
Yes. Yeah. From then on, it was all, yeah.
and in the shows?
And the shows, yes, as well. And we didn't
So
have
was
like background singers either. So we had like horn players singing background. And
Hmm.
that was sometimes a bit more stressful for me because I would have to, I'm emceeing, singing highs and lows, singing background, dancing, and entertaining.
got it.
It started wearing me out a little bit, later on.
Um, Sorry if these seem rather pedestrian, only because like,
That's okay. Far away.
was it a strict environment when you entered the group? Like, was there rules to adhere to?
Well, it was just nothing was said. The only thing my first show I did with Tim, we stopped to get something to eat, and they were trying to convince me not to eat pork because they were
Ah,
Muslims. But
right,
only cool and Khalees were Muslim. People thought the whole band was, but it was only the two of them.
right.
And that answer, I didn't mind that. You know, give up bacon, then okay, it's food. So, but as far as like musically, their vibe, you just like through osmosis, so to speak,
Hmm.
it permeated you, and my respect for what they did musically was I respected that greatly. So I didn't really want to upset the cart, you know what I mean? I was kind of like fit in, and I think maybe Khalees felt that I had that type of spirit too, like them, because after a while it was almost like we had so much in common. Like they moved, their parents moved them from I think Youngstown,
Right.
Ohio, for a better life in Jersey, and my mother moved us from South Carolina for a better life in Jersey. So there was things that we didn't even have to discuss that was just part of our DNA, that made it easy.
When you're tracking your vocals, um, what's the particular environment that you're used to? Like, is it like whole crowd of them there watching, or is it just like, do you prefer to be alone and just with Khalees or just one person, or Ahmir Diodado?
Yeah, and in the beginning, I was so green that I wasn't accustomed to singing with headphones.
Oh,
And Diodato, well, I think Khalees, somebody would just say, listen, just put one behind your ear. And that was kind of weird too, because I'm listening to the room and everything. So had to really make adjustments, and it caused me to uh, sing in fragments, like part of phrase, things like that. You know, you sing "Ladies Night," girl, y'all got one. Then we had to go back, girl, y'all, do it over again instead of singing through. But I found out that the more that I studied the song and I knew it lyrically, then I could ingest the point of the song, and that made it a lot freer for me. But I didn't really care if who was in the studio, because I didn't really see them anyway. I would mostly see Dio and like Jim Bonifant and maybe somebody who was in the corner. But the concentration was just trying to do the best performance. I really wasn't worried about the people.
What is the division of labor when you guys are recording in the studio? Like, are you all together trying to jam something out, or is it like, here's your part, here's your part, here's your part, and then you write the song later?
It was all of that. Sometimes we would be playing together, but most of the time after ladies' night, people would bring in bits and pieces. Like when Charles, when we did Joanna, Charles came in. It was just an upper stroke guitar, tink 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 tink, and he wanted to dedicate it to his mother. And we were sitting there and said, "Okay, dear mom," that's what he called it. We said, "Well, what else, man?" You know, and it wasn't really much going on. And and I think George was the one that said, let's just take a name, Joanna. It wasn't a Joanna we knew. He just grabbed a name, and it sang really well, and we never changed it. For example, you know what I mean? So
who directed that video?
I don't know who was that. We shot that actually up in North Bergen, the first part, and then over in Lyndhurst, New Jersey, at the diner. I forget who actually shot that though.
Well, okay, I'll ask you. In retrospect, how burdensome was Celebration? Because this wasn't like, at the rate where you release this song, do you realize that this song is not just a hit song? Like that this song is never ever going to die, ever going to die?
It's funny you say that, because I don't know if you had a long talk with Khalees, but I don't think Khalees liked the guitar riff.
Really?
There was a part that he didn't like too much, because we came off the road and there was a part that was there, and I think it was a guitar riff, and he was really pissed off about that. But for me, we used to take the cassettes home to study, and this is the truth. I played it for my mother. That's what you think about that. And she said, without a break, she said, "You're going to sing that for the rest of your life."
Really?
I'm telling you, bro. She was always like that. She was intuitive, but with certain things, you know. And she said, "You're going to sing that for the rest of your life." And here we are. That was enough.
Yeah, I was going to say, like,
but we didn't know as a group though.
My favorite thing now is and people rarely do this. I that song is still in my DJ playlist, but now it has a new meaning because I play the Spanish version.
Yeah.
And when people, like, when people are playing the hook, like I'll EQ it as such that they think they're hearing the regular version. And then when I put the Spanish version on, it's always a moment where they stop,
right?
They look at me, and it's like they got to process it for 4 seconds.
Right.
And then like they're really like it almost energizes the more that you guys would have been so considerate. I mean, Motown used to do that all the time, but whatever get burdensome to, like, if you're doing international versions of the songs, then that means like
that was that was a big thing to do. But we were really huge in South America. And that was the label's idea. They said, "Listen, man, you got a huge following in South America. Let's try the Spanish version." And Diodato actually wrote out the lyrics for me. And that's
how did you guys hook up with Diodato?
I don't know how he came into play, except that I think he was working at House of Music with was it John Tropez, if I'm not mistaken. And I think Gabe and them talked to him about producing Kool The Gang. That was before I came, so I don't really know that entire story.
What was Deodato, from your perspective, bringing to the production, to the making of the music or the arrangements or anything like that?
Well, the most I had heard, he was this unbelievable arranger. I didn't know much about him, and so I just started looking him up, and I think did he have 2001 Space
Yeah.
Odyssey?
Yeah,
I
he
don't know if
did.
he had, yeah, that time. But more so than that, I just heard that his collection of and respect that he had as an arranger was pretty widespread. Everybody that spoke of him spoke very highly of him. So when he would talk to us about music, it wasn't so much telling us this is that, we're going to put this major chord here, this minor. It wasn't that. It was just he would do it, and he would always do it with a smile, with his little cigarette in his mouth, his piece, and an unassuming guy. But when he brought the orchestra in to do the string work, that's when I opened my mind again and saw him. They greeted him as doctor, and I said yes, and that went on from there. And that was like my it actually flipped me back to when I was in high school, or what was it, maybe grade school, when my music teacher took us to see How the West Was Won
Hmm.
in New York, the movie. But it was a screenplay, and I mean, screen was on, movie was on screen, but there was a real orchestra, and that was my first time seeing an orchestra. So when I saw Dio do that, I had become accustomed to first be quiet and listen and understand how parts work together.
I was always curious what he was bringing to that, the recipe.
Yeah, it was. I'm all ears, man, and just bringing it all in. And I
What,
think that the key thing was just his arrangements.
yeah. Was he
It
playing
just
any of the
his.
keyboards?
Yeah, sometimes he did, yeah, but he also brought in a couple of people. And as I said,
Ahmir
the
Beyond.
district. Uh, yeah,
Uh,
I think this guy named Adam on Too Hot. If you listen to Too Hot real close, there's a Fender Rhodes in the back besides the whole chords that are playing, and it's making these certain movements that each time I I have a keyboardist try to play it, they usually miss that because the movements have all these overtones going, where those Rhodes had that beautiful reverb on them, So, but yeah, Dio, he's a master, man. He's a treasure, and I think if he hadn't met him, or the group had met him, we wouldn't be have all these hits.
that's sentimental to me because I got that for Christmas. It was
Oh,
Christmas
you
of
did you?
Christmas of 81 was a special Christmas.
81, yeah.
Of your canon, which album do you feel is your best performance, and of your song uh catalog,
How are you
what
going to
do you
steal my question like this, Mr. Questlove?
To
take it
read
away,
your
Steve?
Well,
mind.
no, because actually it's better coming from you because it's kind of like, it's kind of, you're not supposed to ask this question really, like, because they're all your
Yeah,
babies or
what's your
whatever.
favorite kid you like?
Yeah, right, exactly.
But
Well, I
No,
would,
yeah.
I would say the album wise, it would be Emergency,
Oh,
okay.
wow.
Emergency album. But I
That,
think
that was also
I
the
think
biggest seller, correct?
yeah, it's double,
Okay.
yeah, biggest seller. But I still say, Too Hot has something that's romantic. That because when I listen to it, I could listen. How I remember how again I was still learning things,
Uh-huh.
and I could hear vocal things that I said, would do that now, or things that uh, you know, being more mature and able to do more with my voice now. Things I would have tried something a little different, but I think Too Hot as a song, but Emergency as the album.
Jimmy Jam tells me that before their years with Prince, and of course being known for their signature song Cool, that back when they were Flight Time, that their
Great
signature
jam.
song was
Yeah.
Too Hot. Like
Is that, yeah.
that was where where Morris, who was the drummer of the group back then,
Yeah, yeah.
that he would take his one lead solo song and Mr. Cool was Too Hot. Um,
That's awesome.
well, wait, I don't know if I got the answer. Did Celebration become burdensome at all? Like, did it get too big for you? Do you feel like it was ridiculed too much? Was it too successful?
No, not for me.
Like,
I
this song took you places that I don't think your other contemporaries, like, they weren't your contemporaries. It wasn't like BT Express or Mass Production or hell, even Earth, Wind, and Fire kind of stalled at the gate of the early 80s. And you guys were able to go places that they
Mhm.
weren't able to go.
It was electric, man. Because again,
Okay.
you know, Q, you write songs, and when you finish, you just feel good about it. You don't know what's going to happen with it. You just you put your heart and soul into it, and that's basically what we did. And there was the pieces. We had a mechanic over here. One guy twisted a knob there. This guy turned that one. This did that, and we put it together. And the label said, "I think we got something." But if the machine isn't there, a lot of songs that may have been a celebration level, don't make it. We
Got
had
it.
everything was lined up for us. And with me becoming more of a face and a sound that was becoming familiar, they kind of went with that. And even the Yahoos and all that stuff. And I always tell that joke. You very rarely hear like a black group say Yahoo. That's usually
Right.
left out for the country groups. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
But it was, again, you got the low voice. It's a celebration. Yahoo. So
Something for everybody to sing.
yeah, yeah, and you just sing along. And like we talk about the bar mitzvah, you're talking about, the worst
Mm.
thing is when you hear them playing the wrong inversion.
I'm sure you've been privy to every version of Celebration known to man.
I'm
Mhm.
telling you, man. And the worst is when they try to get me to come up and sing. Nah, nah, I had too many drinks already, so
Uh,
no.
Well, I
oh, Kool
actually
The Gang staying in our hotel, y'all. Let's hit it.
Oh yeah, exactly. Get Jay to come down. Tell me about a
Okay,
drink.
so ah, if you don't want to answer, you don't have to answer.
Go to it, man.
What were the hedonistic 80s like?
Girls, girls, girls. Some drugs,
All right.
but we didn't really get into that. It was just, again, the the success became big within a year to 2 year period, that it consumed us in a way that we did. I don't think that the group knew how to be, uh
Well, that,
how to receive it in that way,
I was
and
gonna ask you, so for you to come in at 79, and you're pretty much coming into a situation, one, that brings success, and you're kind of the reason for that success.
yeah,
But I always wanted to know, for the band members that were there before 1969, before the label deals and all that stuff,
Mhm.
for Spike, for uh DT, for Cool, for Khalees, for George, like, what is success for them like? I mean, you guys are the only Americans besides Jody Watley at Do They Know It's Christmas?
Right, right.
Like, you guys are at a crazy level of notoriety.
Mhm.
So how are they how are they adjusting to this?
I never asked
If you can speak for them.
if I could. I really can't. But all I know is that we all shared in everything equally. Um, it wasn't like, at a certain point, when we were at one time flying coach. You know what I mean? Then you're flying first class. You know,
Mhm.
when the tension started happening, I started having my own car. Stuff like that happened. But when we hit the stage, it was about, let's go take this, let's put the flag down, you know. And all of this stuff really helped me, you know, segue into my solo career.
Right.
It was a really proving ground, but I can't really speak to how they received it, whether they were overjoyed, because they never said to me, um, you know, don't forget this is the group, you know, or you know, don't think you're too big and stuff like that. That came from outside the circle, you know. And but
Got it.
when it was time for me to make my exit, it had reached a height where that type of tension had gotten too much, and I didn't think that they were had my back anymore. And we did a show at I'll never forget, at New Year's down in Atlantic City, and I had the flu, and I was really
Mhm.
really sick. And of course, back then I was about 150, you know what I mean,
Mhm.
soaking wet. And we had been touring, and it was the end of the year, and you know, New Year's is always
Big money night.
big money night. And I was sick, but I refused not to perform. And I went out there, and sound voices half gone, and I doing Cherish, and I closed my eyes, and when I tried to open them, all I saw was red. No, not an object, just a wall of red, like just red. And I froze, and I opened my eyes again, and it came open, but then it went red again, and I got scared to death, man. And I was able to walk backstage, and I pulled Kool over somebody. I said, listen, play Jungle Boy, Hollywood Swing or something. Let me go back here and get myself together. And when I couldn't, I tried to come back out, and I left the stage. And that particular night, I'm back there, and all my family was at the audience. You know, they ran backstage. People, even fans, were coming back saying, you know, what's wrong? What happened? They knew something was wrong, because I've never like been like this. And I'm sitting in my room, and none of the guys came over to see how I was doing except one guy, Curtis. And he told him, he said, God, can't you see this guy's sick? You know, he can't do it. And that part hurt me more, because I felt that their interest was more worrying about making the money
The
than
brand.
a
Then
guy who been here since the label was gonna drop you guys in the 70s, and we got together, and it was never I never claimed it was just me, you know, never had that attitude. But to get to this point, and you don't even come back to check on the guy, and I said that's it, and I left.
that's how you
And
left the group.
yeah, that night I called my family, and I said I got it. I can't do this anymore. So it was obvious, back to your question, that they must have felt something along the way, more than what I, you know, felt of them, because I never looked at them any other way except what we did. And but that was a rough time, because I was really really sick, but I never let on. Um, and you know, I've had that many times over the years. I was not well, and I still did shows, you know, because I knew I had more responsibility than just myself. You know, they had families, you know, themselves. We had records to break, and you know, sacrifice, man. You know, you can do this. And many times I just go back to my room, and you know, taking myrrh and ginseng, and you know, all these different things. And I mean, Clifford Adams, you know, he was into all of that, and he would bring me
Mhm.
Golden Seal, and I'm like, you know, trying to get right. So, but I never let on. Hey, man, I can't sing tonight. You know, sometimes, like when we was trying to sing a stepping out was difficult, because it was a
High voice.
falsetto,
Right.
and you know, sometimes that click wouldn't happen, and it would take like a few songs to get there. So we'd have to like take that out of the set. But most of the time, you know, you can walk your way through it. You know, but that was it, man. But again, when I got into, you know, my solo deal, and you know, my first I met with Gerald Busby,
Right.
and Gerald said, listen, man, I don't think you need to be at Motown. You need to go talk to Clive. And I remember sitting with Clive, and Clive played for me. You wouldn't believe this. That's What Friends Are For in his office, with Luther
Yeah.
and Stevie and Whitney.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I thought maybe he felt that maybe I should be the one that was singing that could do that. And make a long story short, MCA offered me more money, and so I ended up signing with MCA over there.
For the Master of the Game album, correct?
Master of the Game. I was the first, yeah, Master of the Game, and working with Lil Silas.
What was it like being on your own and only having yourself to answer to?
It was a little frightening. I must say, it was a little frightening because, I was so used to being a young teenager, always with the band. Like I said, Electro 5, the street dance of these bands, Filet Soul, Kool The Gang. It was always like a group, a collection, And when I got out there, I realized that I didn't know as much as I needed to know about how to really structure songs like complete, you know what I mean? I could do parts and things like that, and lyrics, but I didn't claim to be a pianist, like a skilled musician and nothing like this, but anything I hear, I can write. I've always had that, and so when I got with MCA, I realized that they wanted me to do something like I had done before with Kool and them. And I was already beyond that. I wanted to be more of a eclectic artist and bring in the styles that I loved, from rock and all these different things. And so I hooked up with this guy named Dennis Mikowski.
Okay.
And he introduced me to James Ingram, Tata Vega, Rose Stone, Phil Perry, James, Jeff Porcaro, Paulinho da Costa. And I was like, okay, I love this collection right here. And that's when I started working on Master of the Game. And plus publishers were sending me songs to choose from, and that kind of helped me a lot. But Lul, he was there the whole time, trying to help me get a hit record, because again, I got paid well and the record company would just kind of let me do what I wanted to do. And the first single, I still think they picked the wrong song. They picked the other song, Sister Rosa, and I did a video with Michael Peters, who did Thriller, with Michael and all that stuff. And we did the whole video and everything like this, but they didn't jump on the record because I still think they should have chosen Romancia or some other song.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that kind of little bit of taste there, and people was expecting JT the song, it ain't no ladies' night, when are you gonna do that? And I was doing my interviews, I tell everybody, I said, well, I did that, and my mind isn't there now. And that's when I think Bobby Brown hit, or New Edition.
Right.
And Bobby was blowing the doors out, right there. And they said, well, why don't you give me something like that? And I said, didn't you talk to Bobby? And it's like, well, man, we tried to be like what you did.
Right. Exactly.
So how you guys telling me to do something like that? So it started, that's when the mill started turning. And we knew we had to, kind of go back at it, and even with James Ingram and all these guys on, they still didn't, promote it the right way.
Was it hard? Was it hard adjusting in an environment more conducive to like New Jack Swing than say the kind of musicianship that you were used to? Like, what does it mean to be faced with a pivot? Instead of a band, you might have to have two dancers with you.
That was fine. I did that.
Okay.
I did it. In fact, I actually
no, I know. Well, I know that this
Teddy. Yeah, I had Teddy actually did a song.
Right.
8 days for me. So I had those dancers, but it was again, it was music, man. It wasn't. This is not rocket science here. It's like, what
Right.
do you feel? You know, I'm still that same way today, like I write every day, and it's always something that, I'm sure when I finish with you, I'm gonna write something about this experience. So,
Wow.
oh, I said, let's go at it.
Okay. Hey, see, Steve, I feel like I'm gonna steal your question.
Oh, well, go ahead. I mean, yeah.
Or I want to ask, in the history of you being a professional singer, has anyone ever yelled fire and rain to you from the
Oh God,
audience?
you did steal my question. No, but I
uh,
was I was
no,
honestly wondering about that today. Like about look at his victory pose. That's great. Because I
Actually, I'm
used to
dead
I
serious. Like,
yeah, I
because
had
when I
this
saw your
book.
name, I'm like, nah, not that James Taylor. Huh?
right. I got a lot of that.
No, I used
Have
to
you ever?
sort of study the publishing stuff in credits and in like sort of books, and I was always wondering if the publishing ever got crossed between you guys, on anything.
Not the money, because at that time he was making big money and we weren't. But I used to, when I first went solo, um, the publishers got things mixed up. In fact,
Oh
at
Lord.
the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, um, he came over to my room, and I'm in the dressing room, and he came over to meet me. He said, "I always wanted to meet you." I said, "Really?" And
No,
I
that was the
swear,
first
he
time y'all met.
that's the first time we met. Right.
I wish I could have been there for that.
Yeah, man. And he came over and we hugged each other and we shared some conversation. And I told him that story. I said I was getting these like kind of country songs, man. And my manager said, "Wait a minute, I think this is supposed to be for the other James Taylor." So we had a laugh. And I said, "I
Uh,
want to do something with you." And he said, "Let's do that." So
oh
that
my
may
God,
happen in the near future.
Two smooth voices. I
two
I
James
uh
Taylors.
I approve of that. Do you
Yeah,
know if
well, this is part
Marvin?
of what we got coming up, huh? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Do you know if Marvin ever heard your nod to him on "Take My Heart If You Want It"?
I don't know, man, but I would tell you, because I'm a big Marvin fan as well. Uh, but we were doing that's when I was still with Cool. We did I think the Rainbow Room or the Rainbow Theater in
Yes.
London, and we're on stage. 'Cause I don't know what song we were singing, and I looked to my left over in the corner, and Marvin is standing in the wing. Man, I almost
Because he
like
was living there
dropped.
at the time.
Yeah, he was living there, right? So of course I had to bring him on, and just walking on stage, the place would come berserk. And he walked off, and we were taking a picture together. And he's looking over at me like this, looking down on me. He said, "JT, I can slam dunk you. You know that, right?" I said, "Brother, I can play ball too. Let's do this." We never got to play, but
Uh,
he was amazing, man. I would have loved to just take the ball to him a little bit because he was kind of a tall guy,
I
but
see. I
it would have
see.
been tough. But yeah, but no, I don't know if he ever did.
That's my favorite part of that. It's one of my favorite ad libs of yours, man.
Like Marvin,
I
huh?
love that song so much.
I was actually talking to George because George wrote the song, and he was like, "Whoo, whoo, whoo." I said, "Like Marvin,
Like
huh?"
Marvin, huh? Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. It was
Exactly. Exactly. It's weird. There was a time period in which videos were, you know, not necessary, but could be an option to help you sell a little more if were trying to get your stuff played on like Top of the Pops, or if you couldn't get to Europe in time. Um, but I don't even know if you guys are aware that the company that you made the Get Down On It video with, it's a digital processing called Scanimate.
Yeah.
They're
I remember
kind
this.
of now like they're kind of now part of the AI, digital technology. But
How they do that?
yeah, you guys, the Jacksons and Earth, Wind and Fire, just happen to use this particular video company that will, pretty much eat everyone's lunch some 45 years later. But making videos, like, was that a taxing thing, or did you guys see it as an advantage now that you saw what it could do for Michael Jackson? Like, oh, we can get because I don't know if Joanna was on BET. I've seen it a lot, so I think I've seen you guys on MTV like in the early '80s. But for you, like, what was the video process like? Because even that video for Misled, which I'll never understand. Like, are you just showing up and like, okay, it's a chase scene with an Indiana Jones and a bunch of
No,
white
no.
ghosts dancing around me? Like,
Yeah, right.
what's the video process like? Like, especially for Misled, such a weird video.
Well, Quest, I've always been into film, and like even right now, my future project that I'm working on now. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But
Okay.
because I was in the film early in my life, I was able to, when videos came along, I could process everything that's happened because most of our songs was like a storyboard. And you mentioned Misled. It was about, it was basically Khalees's life story, part of his life story, and my input. And it
Really?
was the metaphor of the white dancer was like she was like the cocaine that people were taking, misleading, looking beautiful and everything, and taking you down that rabbit hole, And my nephew who played me as a young kid.
A young kid.
Yeah, that was my nephew. Yeah, and so to bring that part in, that was theatrical and the special effects. So, and then the one thing that happened on that video was that we said, how are we going to get the band in? And I wrote most of that concept. And I said, well, you guys are going to be in, incognito as well. And it's a dream state. So that's why, that happened. And when we came at the end and they were like, JT, we got to go, man. We got a gig to do. They were in the dream, and that's when they turned around. So Michael definitely influenced that as far as the video, because remember, MTV wasn't playing us. And Michael turned that around. So that's
Right.
when the whole video thing for Black artists started kicking in. And we knew that Michael had raised the bar. So we had to raise the bar, because if you remember on most of the charts, if we knew Michael was coming, we had to get our position first, because
Right.
as soon as he came, you knew we were going to knock you out of number one. But being there in the top 5 or top 10, that means in the stores, your music was right there alongside his, and it would help your sales. But it all of that, the video world actually helped me with the project I'm doing now and what my future is going to be.
Got it.
Yeah.
At the time when you guys get invited to do Band-Aid, like, do you have any inkling of a clue what you guys walked into historically?
Not at all. No, because we were on tour again.
Y'all just had a night off in London?
No, we were actually just I don't know if I think we did have a night off, but the thing that bothered me was that they had mentioned, I think on the news or something, that with all of these big stars there, and when we got there was no cameras. And I remember telling DT, I said, where's the press, man? Our A&R people telling about the press. And we walked in, and it was, no one said, okay, JT, you're going to be doing this, and this is going to be doing that. We kind of just walked in the studio, and everybody was just sitting around the room. And Phil Collins and Geldof, and they were behind the board, and they just kind of waved, and and later on, I thought somebody mentioned that they wanted me to do the part that who's this? What's his name? Well, tonight, thank God, is them. And I did. And I'm glad they didn't ask me, because I would have never done that
You
part.
talking about Bono's line?
Yeah, Bono's line. Thank God it's you, it's them instead of you. I said, well, no, I would have never sang that anyway. But because that's just a little too much for me, I wouldn't. Thank God it's you, that's not my vibe. You know what I mean? But yeah, it was awesome, man. But we still didn't know how it was going to come out. I just enjoyed, meeting, Sting and Phil. but it was intense. It was like no time to really hang out and talk about it. And when they put us all on the stands together, it was just like, okay, this is what we're going to sing. We got to learn the song, and we went through the process.
For you, what was the best, like when you think of like the good times or whatever, like places you played or even people you met or people that you never thought you meet? Like what's a career highlight for you of something like wow, I can't believe this happened?
Ooh. Well, there's many,
Okay.
but I think going to Africa for the first time was monumental because I remember when we were at House of Music once, and this was during apartheid,
Mm-hmm.
and this agent came to the studio and asked us to play. And that's when everybody was refusing to play Sun City. It was part of our protest. And I remember looking at this guy, almost tearing up, that how could he have the nerve to come here and ask us to perform there, knowing the atrocities that were going on.
Right.
And I remember we got a silver record, I think, from South Africa. And when we got it, I said, I refuse to hang this up in my house until Mandela is freed.
Mm-hmm.
And I put it in the closet. And when he was freed, I took it out and celebrated that. But I think going to Liberia and then learning about, you know, the slave quarters and where our people were brought from the shores and things like that, the Ivory Coast, up and down, you know. And I'd always felt like I didn't want to take money out of there. Because it wasn't really built up as much like Ghana, right, like it is now, you know. And I just didn't understand. Well, I understood, but I didn't feel good about doing a concert and taking money from a place that we should have just left it there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Africa was, it's still to this day, I think the feeling I get that touches my heart most.
One, congratulations on getting in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh, yes, thank you.
When you got the call, like, were you surprised or, you know, were you actively hoping for this?
Well, you know, I tell the story. I said, when I think back to being at 13, you never think about it. You never think about any accolades. At least I didn't. My whole thing was just a love for music, man. And, you know, and when they told us about the Rock, of course, I called all my family, and I think they announced it on the American Idol or something like that. And we were all sitting around watching, waiting for it to come on. When they said, bam, Kool The Gang, my phone jumping off the hook. People talking about, how can I get there? I want to come. So we had a lot of family there, but it was just a combination of all of the years of the sweat, being away from my family, having my family there, enjoying some of it, coming into Kool The Gang, you know, and then leaving the group. And also, you know, I brought everything from Hackensack High School to, you know, the bands I was in, to, you know, Jersey City. Anybody that I met along the way were a part of it. And that's including, you know, your group, the Philly sound, Motown sound, you know, anything. It was like I was bringing all of you with me, you know. And then, of course, you know, to find out that you were going to be playing with me, I'm like, oh man, this is too good to be true, you know. So, you know, when I walked up and met you, you know, I was like, yo, right in the middle of playing, yo, man, what's up? And I got a good picture I want to send you about that too. But
I was nervous, man. Like, you know,
well, you were nervous. Come on, man, you were smacking.
No, I mean, but just you, the only legendary luminary of like my life track that I haven't met yet. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, it was awesome. and you guys played, man. And the thing about it was that you wouldn't believe this. That night, that week, I had some dental work done, right? And
Oh,
I had this. I don't know if you ever heard of TMJ, but it's when
no.
your jaw locks.
Uh-huh.
So that whole night in the performance, I couldn't open my mouth but this much.
What?
So I'm singing, and in rehearsal, I was actually, when I was walking around the stage, was trying to find vowel sounds of how I was going to say certain things, and I couldn't hit like the high note. Yahoo! If you listen back at it, I couldn't do it
Oh, wow.
all night. So I was in a little bit of an agony while I was enjoying myself. That's a story nobody can tell, right?
I didn't know, man.
Nobody knew, you know.
We wouldn't have known. We wouldn't have been the wiser. Wow.
Well, but the night was awesome, bro, and it's like it's something that I will, treasure forever.
Before that night, had you had any contact with Kool? Like, was that the first time you guys spoke since the reunion, or?
No. The first time was a few years ago when we were inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame.
Got it. Okay.
And that was the first time I had seen them, and since the early '90s. I still went in there like, just proud of what we had accomplished over the years, and when we, so they all came to me and we spoke, and they were cordial, and in fact, Khalees came to me and pulled me to the side and said, "Man, why don't we get back together and do this again?" And I was taken back because there was,
I would have loved that.
Going back to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That was the other thing that was kind of bittersweet, that, George and Charles, DT, and Clifford, and they weren't there. And it was like, I'm sitting with their wives and their children, we're talking and things like this. And, it was just a little empty. There was a space there that was empty, but I hope if they're looking down, they appreciated what Kool and I did, along with, you and the Roots as well.
What are you working on now?
Well, the thing right now is I just kind of, I was right before COVID hit, I realized I was going out doing all these one-nighters, money was great and everything, but every day you leave, you come back home, you lose 3 days, 3 or 4 days. And when I started working on this project with my son, who's a filmmaker and a director, and we weren't getting anywhere. And so I said, listen, I got to stop this touring. And actually COVID helped because nobody was really working that much anyway. Mm-hmm. And so like I've always done, I said, well, I want to do something that hasn't been done before, or something different, and include different genres, social media, film, music, and make a combination of all of those things and involve people like yourself, your group, and different artists from different genres around, and include like the visual effects of things, and devote all the time to new kind of music and development, and like study, and to enhance my knowledge, of directing and writing in that genre. So when without letting everything out of the bag, it's mm-hmm. like when you're trying to do something that hasn't been done, it takes a lot of attention. You have to go through every little piece. It's not just one creative idea. The idea grew, and now we're at a point where we're at, I would say, the script, for example, mm-hmm. and all I can say to you is I will promise to lead you on as we develop this, because it's something that hopefully you'll be a part of. I'll just ask you straight out, and I think that it's something that is needed today, because when I listen to some of the music that's out here, it seems mm-hmm. like things have either plateaued or just have a little stagnant,
a little vibrational.
Yeah, so we need a little something. And and usually over the years, we've had a collective of people doing so many different styles that we could pull from anywhere. Now it just seems like there's some things that are just not, when I listen to it, I'm not being fed as much. So
Right.
6 years of like revising this project, I'm kind of looking at some things that I wrote down, combining like the mediums of music and film. But it's like how can I explain this? It will be something that will be uh, future, but something with grassroots of the arts,
Okay.
something I think that everyone will be able to relate to.
All I gotta say is, man, you are. I mean, in the highest sense of the term, a class act, man. You just one of the. I'm so glad you got your flowers. I'm so glad you got recognition, and that's often hard, especially for a lot of our brothers and sisters who um are pioneers, are leaders,
Mm-hmm.
and oftentimes their artwork is taken for granted, and
Yes,
they're not given the proper um respect due. And you are that person, man.
I appreciate that.
You're on
Now,
a favorite.
and those artists that you mentioned, deserve to be heard. They deserve to have that, like that renaissance,
Mhm.
and I really think that this project, is gonna do that. And listen, before we end this, man, there's so much more to talk about, but I just first want to, congratulate you on the Summer of Soul.
Thank you, brother.
I'm looking forward to your next work. Where's that Oscar, man? I'm looking for that gold. Look behind you over there and put that statue up behind you.
I keep
Another,
this is my office, man. I keep my Oscar at home, but
yeah, well, this is gonna be another one, bro.
well,
I mean,
thank
it
you,
was
my
it was
brother.
it was really like such a so well put together, man, and like the way you when you brought in the people from Harlem, telling their stories, the way you interplayed that with the music, it
Yeah.
was like a storybook. It was magical,
Well,
man. You have a special gift with that.
well, thank you, my brother. I appreciate that, man. I thank
Yeah, and as I said, with the special that you're doing, I think it's great to hear because it kind of leads into what we're doing now. And
you. Okay.
you know, there was something else I wanted to say. Anyway,
I
uh,
want to say something. I got
yeah,
sort of an announcement of my own. I've done the math, JT, and since you've technically appeared at the most bar mitzvahs in the history of bar mitzvahs, I am announcing that you have been declared an honorary Jew, and you can consider yourself bar mitzvah.
all right. Do I have to learn my speech and everything?
You are part of the Hebrew persuasion at this
I
point.
There
appreciate
you
it, man.
go. There you go. I gotta start editing at 9:30.
Okay, man.
But thank you very much, brother, for doing this doing this podcast. And on behalf of the family and Sugar Steve, this is Questlove, brother James JT Taylor, the one and only James JT
Wow.
Taylor. Thank you so much. And we'll
I
see you
love you, man.
next go
Love you.
round.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much, JT. That was amazing.